Marcus Johnson was a man of few words but many skills. At 34, he had spent over a decade perfecting his craft as a handyman in the small suburban town of Willow Creek. His reputation preceded him. Marcus could fix anything. Whether it was a stubborn leak under the sink, a refrigerator that refused to cool, or an old lamp flickering like a firefly, people knew they could count on him. He wasn't flashy or loud. Instead, he carried himself with quiet confidence and always showed up with a toolbox worn from years of hard work. On this particular crisp autumn afternoon, Marcus was finishing up a job at Mrs. Harper's house when his phone buzzed in his pocket. The screen lit up with an unfamiliar number. "Curious," he answered. "Hello?" Marcus said, wiping grease-streaked hands on a rag. A soft, hesitant voice replied, "Hi, is this Marcus? The handyman?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus responded politely. "How can I help you?" The caller introduced herself as Eleanor Whitmore. She explained that her garage light had stopped working weeks ago, leaving her fumbling in the dark whenever she needed something from the garage. It wasn't urgent, she assured him, but it was starting to bother her. Would he be available to take a look? Marcus jotted down her address, a quiet street tucked away near the edge of town, and promised to stop by later that day. As he drove toward Eleanor's home, he couldn't help but notice how different her neighborhood felt compared to others in Willow Creek. The houses were older, set farther apart, and surrounded by sprawling oak trees whose golden leaves danced in the breeze. Her driveway wound through a thicket of trees before opening up to reveal a modest white house with blue shutters. A rusted mailbox leaned slightly to one side, its paint peeling. Eleanor greeted him at the door wearing a floral apron dusted with flour. She looked to be in her late 60s, with kind eyes framed by silver-rimmed glasses and wisps of gray hair escaping from her bun. There was a nervous energy about her, though Marcus couldn't quite place why. Maybe it was just excitement over finally getting the light fixed. Either way, he smiled warmly and extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Ms. Whitmore," he said. "I'll see what I can do about your garage light." "Oh, please call me Eleanor," she insisted, shaking his hand firmly. "And thank you for coming so quickly. I'm not used to having strangers around the house these days." Her comment struck Marcus as odd, but he nodded politely and followed her to the garage. Inside, the space smelled faintly of pine cleaner and motor oil. Tools hung neatly on pegboards, and shelves were lined with jars labeled in neat cursive handwriting. Clearly, Eleanor took pride in keeping things tidy. The light fixture itself was mounted high above the garage door opener. Marcus fetched his ladder from the van and climbed up to inspect it. From below, Eleanor watched intently, occasionally offering tidbits of information about the house. "My husband built this garage himself," she said wistfully. "He loved tinkering with things. After he passed, well, I haven't been able to keep up with everything." Marcus paused mid-inspection and glanced down at her. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said sincerely. "Must have been tough." She nodded, forcing a small smile. "It has been. But life goes on, doesn't it?" For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the distant chirping of birds and the occasional creak of the ladder beneath Marcus's weight. Finally, breaking the silence, Marcus asked, "So how long has the light been out?" "About 3 weeks," Eleanor admitted. "I kept meaning to call someone earlier, but..." She trailed off, shrugging sheepishly. "I guess I procrastinated." "No, harm done," Marcus assured her. "These things happen." He unscrewed the bulb and tested it with his multimeter, confirming it was burnt out. Reaching into his toolbox, he pulled out a replacement bulb and carefully screwed it in. When he flipped the switch, the garage flooded with warm yellow light. "There we go," he said, climbing down the ladder. "All set." Eleanor clapped her hands together in delight. "Oh, thank goodness, you have no idea how much I appreciate this. Now I won't trip over my gardening supplies anymore." Marcus chuckled, happy to help. As he began packing up his tools, Eleanor lingered nearby, clearly reluctant to let him leave. She hesitated for a moment before blurting out, "Would you like some lemonade? I made a pitcher this morning and it's still cold." Caught off guard by the offer, Marcus hesitated. Normally, he preferred to finish jobs quickly and move on to the next. but there was something endearing about Eleanor's eagerness to connect. Besides, he was thirsty. "That'd be nice, thank you," he said. Eleanor beamed and led him inside. The kitchen was cozy, with sunlight streaming through lace curtains and the scent of freshly baked cookies wafting through the air. She poured him a glass of lemonade and set it on the table alongside a plate of oatmeal raisin cookies. "You're too kind," Marcus said, taking a sip. The drink was refreshingly tart, with just the right amount of sweetness. They chatted casually as Marcus sipped his lemonade. Eleanor asked about his work, his family, and how he got into handyman jobs. In turn, she shared stories about teaching elementary school for 30 years and raising 2 children who now lived far away. Despite their age difference, they found common ground in their love of problem-solving and storytelling. But as the conversation continued, Marcus noticed something unusual about Eleanor's demeanor. She seemed unusually attentive, almost as if she were studying him. Her gaze lingered longer than usual and her questions grew increasingly personal, yet not uncomfortably so. Still, it left him wondering what exactly was going on here. Little did Marcus know, this seemingly ordinary repair job was about to lead to something far more unexpected and unforgettable. After that first visit to Eleanor's house, Marcus thought little of their brief interaction beyond the fact that she seemed unusually friendly for a client. He chalked it up to her being lonely, a widow living alone in a quiet neighborhood, but he didn't dwell on it. His days were filled with back-to-back jobs, and he rarely had time to reflect on anything outside of work. Still, something about Eleanor lingered in his mind. Maybe it was her warm smile or the way she'd insisted he stay for lemonade. Whatever it was, it left an impression. A week later, Marcus's phone rang again. This time, when he saw Eleanor's number pop up, he wasn't surprised. Clients often called him back for minor repairs after realizing how reliable he was. But as soon as Eleanor began explaining her latest issue, a loose doorknob in the hallway, he sensed this call might be different. Her tone was casual, almost playful, as if she were inviting him over for tea rather than asking him to fix something. "Of course I can come take a look," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice neutral. "When would be a good time? How about tomorrow morning?" Eleanor asked quickly, as though worried he might say no. "I'll have coffee ready if you're interested." Marcus hesitated. Coffee? That felt like crossing into unfamiliar territory. Most clients simply wanted him to show up, do his job, and leave. Yet there was something disarming about Eleanor's enthusiasm. She wasn't pushy or demanding, just genuinely eager to see him again. Against his usual instincts, Marcus agreed. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Eleanor's house promptly at 9 o'clock. As promised, she greeted him with a steaming mug of coffee and a plate of homemade muffins on the kitchen counter. The aroma of cinnamon and fresh-baked goods filled the air, making it hard to resist staying longer than necessary. "You didn't have to go through all this trouble," Marcus said, accepting the coffee with a grateful nod. "It's no trouble at all," Eleanor replied, waving off his comment. "Besides, I figured you could use a break from running around fixing everyone else's problems." Her words caught him off guard. No one had ever phrased it quite like that before. To most people, Marcus was just the handyman, the guy who showed up, solved the problem, and disappeared until the next issue arose. But Eleanor saw him differently. She treated him like a person, not just a service provider. As they walked to the hallway where the troublesome doorknob awaited, Eleanor kept up a steady stream of conversation. She asked about his weekend plans. He admitted he didn't have any. Shared stories about her grandchildren, who apparently loved dinosaurs, and even joked about her own lack of mechanical skills. "If I tried to fix this myself, I'd probably end up taking the whole door off." By the time Marcus tightened the screws on the doorknob and declared the job complete, nearly an hour had passed, and yet neither of them seemed ready to part ways. Instead, Eleanor invited him to sit in the living room while she brewed another pot of coffee. Reluctantly, Marcus accepted, telling himself it wouldn't hurt to relax for a few minutes. They settled onto opposite ends of the couch, surrounded by shelves lined with books and framed photographs. One picture caught Marcus's eye, a younger, Eleanor standing beside a man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. It didn't take much imagination to guess who it was. "That's my husband, Robert," Eleanor said, noticing Marcus's gaze. "He passed away 2 years ago. Heart attack." "I'm sorry to hear that," Marcus said softly. "He looks like he was a good man." "He was," Eleanor agreed, her voice tinged with both sadness and fondness. "We had 40 wonderful years together. Losing him, well, let's just say it's been an adjustment." For a moment, the room fell silent except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Marcus found himself studying Eleanor more closely. Beneath her cheerful exterior, there was a deep loneliness that she couldn't fully hide. He recognized it because he'd felt it too, especially during the long nights when work consumed his life and left little room for personal connections. But then Eleanor did something unexpected. Smiling mischievously, she leaned forward and said, "You know, Marcus, you're very handsome. Have you ever been told that?" Marcus blinked, unsure he'd heard correctly. Handsome? Him? Sure, people occasionally complimented his work ethic or his politeness, but no one had ever called him handsome. Especially not a woman like Eleanor. Thank you," he stammered, feeling his cheeks grow warm. "That's, very kind." Eleanor laughed lightly, clearly amused by his reaction. "Don't be embarrassed, it's true. You've got a strong jawline, those broad shoulders, and your eyes. They're so expressive. People don't notice things like that enough." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to respond. Compliments weren't exactly part of his daily routine. Most of his interactions revolved around fixing things, not discussing physical appearances. Yet there was something oddly sincere about Eleanor's words. She wasn't flirting or teasing. She genuinely meant what she said. "I think we should all tell each other nice things more often," Eleanor continued, sipping her coffee. "Life's too short to keep compliments to ourselves, don't you agree?" Marcus nodded slowly, still processing everything. "Yeah, I guess you're right." Over the next hour, their conversation drifted between light-hearted topics and deeper reflections. Eleanor spoke openly about her grief, her hopes for the future, and her love for gardening. Marcus, in turn, shared snippets of his own life, how he grew up in a bustling city, how he discovered his passion for carpentry as a teenager, and how he dreamed of someday opening his own workshop. What struck Marcus most was how natural it felt to talk to Eleanor. Despite their differences in age and background, they connected effortlessly. There was no judgment, no pretense, just two people sharing pieces of themselves with each other. When Marcus finally stood to leave, Eleanor walked him to the door. "Thank you again for coming," she said warmly, "and for listening. Not many people take the time to really listen anymore." "It was my pleasure," Marcus replied honestly, and for the first time in a long while, he meant it. As he drove away from Eleanor's house, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. What started as a simple repair job had turned into something far more meaningful. He didn't know what to make of it yet, but one thing was certain: Eleanor Whitmore was unlike anyone he'd ever met. Over the next few weeks, Marcus found himself returning to Eleanor's house more often than he initially expected. At first, it was for legitimate repairs, fixing a squeaky floorboard in the kitchen, tightening loose hinges on the front door, replacing a cracked window pane in the guest bedroom. But as time went on, the calls became less about urgent problems and more about small, almost trivial tasks. A light bulb needed changing. A picture frame was slightly crooked. The mailbox latch was sticking. Each visit followed a similar pattern. Marcus would arrive at Eleanor's doorstep, toolbox in hand, only to be greeted with a warm smile and an offer of coffee or tea. They'd chat while he worked, their conversations growing increasingly personal and comfortable. Eleanor spoke freely about her life. The joys of teaching young children, the challenges of raising teenagers, the bittersweet memories of her late husband, Robert. She shared stories about her grandchildren, showing off photos of their latest milestones, and talked about her garden, which she lovingly referred to as her little slice of heaven. In return, Marcus opened up about his own experiences. He told her about growing up in a cramped apartment in the city, where noise and chaos were constants. He described how he discovered carpentry as a teenager, finding peace in the quiet rhythm of sanding wood and hammering nails. He confessed that he sometimes felt stuck in his current job, yearning for something bigger, a workshop of his own, perhaps where he could create custom furniture and pass on his skills to others. Eleanor listened intently, her eyes lighting up whenever Marcus spoke passionately about his dreams. "You should go for it," she encouraged him one afternoon as they sat together in her sunlit kitchen. "Life's too short to put your dreams on hold." "I know," Marcus admitted, stirring sugar into his coffee. "But starting a business takes money, and I'm not exactly rolling in cash right now." "Well, maybe you don't need everything all at once," Eleanor suggested thoughtfully. "Start small, build a portfolio, save up, and who knows, maybe someone will believe in you enough to help." Her words stuck with Marcus long after he left her house that day. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a future beyond fixing leaky faucets and broken lights. It wasn't just Eleanor's encouragement that inspired him. It was the way she believed in him without hesitation, as if she saw potential in him that he hadn't fully recognized himself. Their bond deepened with each visit. What began as a professional relationship evolved into a genuine friendship. Marcus looked forward to his trips to Eleanor's house, not because of the work, but because of the connection they shared. She had a way of making him feel seen and valued, qualities he rarely experienced in his day-to-day life. In turn, Marcus brought a sense of stability and companionship to Eleanor, filling the void left by her husband's passing. Still, there were moments when Eleanor surprised him with unexpected compliments. Once, as he reached high above his head to adjust a ceiling fan, she remarked, "You've got such strong arms. I bet you could lift me right off the ground if you wanted to." Another time, as they strolled through her garden, she said, "Your laugh is contagious, Marcus. You should do it more often." At first, these comments made Marcus uncomfortable. He wasn't used to receiving praise, especially from someone like Eleanor, but over time, he came to appreciate her candor. Her compliments weren't flirtatious or awkward. They were heartfelt and sincere, delivered with the same warmth and kindness that defined her personality. Despite their growing closeness, Marcus couldn't ignore the occasional pang of unease. He knew that some people might misinterpret their relationship, given their age difference and the frequency of his visits. Small towns like Willow Creek thrived on gossip, and Marcus had already heard whispers about him and Eleanor at the hardware store and the local diner. One Saturday morning, while picking up supplies for a job, Marcus overheard two women chatting near the paint aisle. "Isn't that the handyman who's always at Eleanor Whitmore's place?" one of them asked, nodding discreetly eye toward him. "What do you think they're really doing?" Marcus pretended not to hear, focusing instead on comparing shades of white paint. But the comment lingered in his mind, gnawing at him. He hated the idea of being judged, especially when he hadn't done anything wrong. Still, he reminded himself that Eleanor's happiness mattered more than idle speculation. If spending time with her brought her joy, then he wouldn't let baseless rumors stand in the way. Eleanor, for her part, seemed unfazed by the gossip. When Marcus tentatively mentioned it during one of their visits, she shrugged it off with a dismissive wave. "Let them talk," she said firmly. "People will always find something to say, no matter what we do. The important thing is that we know the truth, and that we're happy." Her confidence bolstered Marcus's resolve. Together they decided to rise above the judgment, leaning on each other for support during a challenging time. Their friendship became a sanctuary, a safe space where they could be themselves without fear of criticism or misunderstanding. As autumn gave way to winter, the bond between Marcus and Eleanor continued to flourish. They spent hours talking about everything under the sun: books, movies, politics, family traditions, childhood memories. Eleanor introduced Marcus to classical music, playing recordings of Mozart and Beethoven while they sipped hot cocoa by the fireplace. Marcus, in turn, taught her basic woodworking skills, helping her build a birdhouse for her garden. Through it all, their mutual respect and admiration only grew stronger. Eleanor admired Marcus's determination and humility, qualities she wished more young people possessed. Marcus cherished Eleanor's wisdom and generosity, traits that reminded him of the grandmother he barely remembered. By the time the first snowfall blanketed Willow Creek, Marcus realized that Eleanor had become one of the most important people in his life. She wasn't just a client or a friend, she was a mentor, a confidant, and a source of inspiration. And though their relationship defied conventional expectations, it was built on a foundation of trust, understanding, and unconditional support. For dear Marcus, this newfound connection was both surprising and transformative. It challenged his assumptions about friendship and reminded him of the power of human connection. For Eleanor, it rekindled a sense of purpose and belonging, proving that love and companionship could take many forms, not just romantic ones. As winter settled over Willow Creek, the bond between Marcus and Eleanor only grew stronger. Their visits became less about repairs and more about spending time together. They would sit by the fireplace, sipping hot cocoa or tea, sharing stories, late into the evening. Sometimes they'd bundle up and walk through Eleanor's snow-dusted garden, marveling at how the frost transformed the landscape into something magical. To them, these moments felt natural, even effortless. But outside their cozy bubble, whispers began to spread. In a small town like Willow Creek, where everyone knew everyone else's business, it didn't take long for people to notice Marcus's frequent visits to Eleanor's house. At first, the gossip was subtle. A raised eyebrow here, a curious question there. Isn't that the handyman? What's he doing at Eleanor Whitmore's place again? People would ask, their tones laced with suspicion. The rumors escalated, quickly. Some speculated that Marcus was taking advantage of a lonely widow, using her kindness to secure extra work, or worse, money. Others accused Eleanor of being reckless, suggesting that she was too trusting and vulnerable after losing her husband. A few even hinted at something more scandalous, implying that their relationship wasn't as innocent as it seemed. Marcus first became aware of the gossip during one of his trips to the local hardware store. He was browsing the tool aisle when two men approached him, their expressions smug and judgmental. One of them leaned in close, his voice low but loud enough for others to hear. "So, you're the guy always hanging around Eleanor Whitmore, huh? Must be nice having a rich old lady paying your bills." Marcus stiffened, his grip tightening on the hammer he held. For a moment, anger surged through him. How dare they make assumptions about something they knew nothing about? But instead of lashing out, he forced himself to remain calm. "I'm just doing my job," he said evenly, meeting their eyes without flinching. "If that's all, I've got work to do." The men chuckled and walked away, leaving Marcus fuming. As much as he tried to brush off the encounter, the words stuck with him. He couldn't shake the feeling of being judged, scrutinized, and unfairly labeled. The thought of people talking behind his back made his stomach churn. Was this what it meant to live in a small town? To have your every move dissected and misinterpreted? When Marcus arrived at Eleanor's house later that afternoon, he debated whether to tell her about the incident. She greeted him warmly as always, ushering him inside and offering him a cup of coffee. But as they sat together in her cozy kitchen, Marcus hesitated. How could he bring up such an ugly topic without upsetting her? Eleanor, however, sensed that something was bothering him. "You seem quieter than usual today," she observed, tilting her head slightly. "Is everything okay?" Marcus sighed, running a hand over his face. "To be honest, no, I heard some things at the hardware store earlier. People are saying stuff about us, about me coming here so often. They think I'm taking advantage of you or something." Eleanor's expression darkened, but only briefly. Then she let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "Oh, Marcus, don't pay any attention to those busybodies. They've always loved drama. It gives them something to talk about over their morning coffee." "I know," Marcus said, his voice tinged with frustration. "But it still hurts. I don't want people thinking badly of you or of me. Maybe I should stop coming by so much, give them less to gossip about." Eleanor's smile faded, replaced by a look of determination. Absolutely not, she said firmly, placing a hand on his arm. Don't you dare let other people dictate how we live our lives. If we enjoy each other's company, then that's all that matters. Let them say whatever they want. They'll get tired of it eventually. Her words struck a chord with Marcus. He admired her strength, her refusal to let fear or judgment control her actions. Still, the weight of the gossip lingered, casting a shadow over their otherwise bright connection. Things came to a head a few weeks later, when Eleanor's daughter, Sarah, called unexpectedly. Sarah lived several hours away and rarely visited, but she had heard the rumors swirling around town. Concerned for her mother, she decided to confront Eleanor directly. "Mom, can we talk?" Sarah asked during their weekly phone call. Her tone was cautious, almost hesitant. "I've been hearing some things about you and this handyman. Marcus, is it? Are you sure you're making the right decision letting him come over so often?" Eleanor bristled at the implication. "Sarah, please don't start," she said, sharply. "Marcus is a good man. He's kind, respectful, and incredibly talented. We're friends, that's all." "But Mom, he's young enough to be your son," Sarah exclaimed. "People are going to talk, and it's not fair to either of you. Don't you think this might look inappropriate?" "Inappropriate?" Eleanor repeated, her voice rising. "What's inappropriate is jumping to conclusions based on idle chatter. You don't know Marcus, and you certainly don't know what we mean to each other. This friendship has brought me so much happiness. Sarah, why can't you see that?" The conversation ended abruptly, with both women upset and frustrated. Eleanor hung up the phone, tears welling in her eyes. It hurt deeply to feel judged by her own family, especially when she knew her intentions were pure. She confided in Marcus later that day, her voice trembling as she recounted the call. "I hate that people feel the need to meddle in my life," she admitted. "It's exhausting, trying to defend myself against accusations that aren't even true." Marcus listened silently, his heart aching for her. He wanted to protect her from the pain of judgment, but he also knew that running away wouldn't solve anything. Instead, he offered her reassurance. "We're not doing anything wrong, Eleanor. Our friendship is real, and it's beautiful. If people can't see that, then that's their problem, not ours." Together they resolved to stand firm against the criticism. They continued seeing each other regularly, refusing to let fear dictate their choices. When neighbors stared or whispered as Marcus pulled into Eleanor resulted. As the weeks turned into months, Marcus and Eleanor's friendship became a quiet rebellion against the judgments of those around them. They didn't shout their defiance or try to convince anyone of their innocence. Instead, they simply carried on as they always had, spending time together, sharing laughter, and supporting one another in ways that felt natural and true. To them, the gossip was just background noise, an irritating hum that couldn't drown out the melody of their connection. One chilly spring morning, Marcus arrived at Eleanor's house with a surprise tucked under his arm, a wooden birdhouse. He'd spent hours crafting in his spare time. It wasn't perfect. The edges were slightly uneven and the paint job was far from professional, but it was made with care and intention. He set it down on her kitchen table, watching nervously as she examined it. "Marcus, this is beautiful," Eleanor exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. "Did you make this yourself?" He nodded sheepishly. "Yeah, I've been practicing woodworking. Thought maybe you could use it in your garden." Eleanor ran her fingers over the smooth surface, tracing the intricate carvings he'd added along the roofline. "It's absolutely lovely. You're so talented. You should really think about pursuing this more seriously." Her encouragement meant the world to him. Over the past few months, Eleanor had become not just a friend but also a cheerleader for his dreams. She believed in him when others doubted, and her faith gave him the courage to imagine a future beyond, fixing leaky faucets and broken lights. Inspired by her words, Marcus began dedicating more time to his passion project, designing and building custom furniture. He started small, creating pieces for friends and family who admired his work. Word spread quickly, and soon he was taking commissions from people all over town, even some of the same neighbors who had once whispered about him behind his back. Each completed piece filled him with pride, reminding him that talent and hard work could silence even the harshest critics. Meanwhile, Eleanor found herself blossoming in ways she hadn't expected. With Marcus by her side, she rediscovered parts of herself she thought she'd lost after Robert's passing. She started volunteering at the local library again, helping organize events and lead book clubs. She joined a gardening group where she shared tips and stories with fellow enthusiasts. And she reconnected with old friends, inviting them over for tea and lively conversations. Their friendship also helped bridge the gap between Eleanor and her children. After several tense phone calls, Sarah finally agreed to visit her mother and to meet Marcus. The initial meeting was awkward, with Sarah sizing him up cautiously while Eleanor watched anxiously. But as the afternoon wore on, barriers began to crumble. Marcus charmed Sarah with his easygoing nature and genuine interest in getting to know her. By the end of the day, she admitted, albeit reluctantly, that he seemed like a decent guy. "No, Mom," Sarah said as she prepared to leave. "I still don't fully understand your arrangement, but if he makes you happy, then I guess that's what matters most." Eleanor beamed, pulling her daughter into a tight hug. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means so much to me." By summer, the rumors in Willow Creek had largely died down. People grew bored of speculating about Marcus and Eleanor, especially since nothing scandalous ever came of their relationship. Some even began to see the beauty in their unconventional bond, a young black man and an elderly white widow finding solace and joy in each other's company. Their friendship became a testament to the power of human connection, transcending age, race, and societal expectations. On a warm July evening, Marcus and Eleanor stood side by side in her backyard, admiring the fruits of their labor. Together, they had transformed the space into a vibrant oasis, complete with colorful flower beds, winding stone pathways, and, of course, the birdhouse Marcus had built. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the garden, Eleanor turned to him with a soft smile. "You know, Marcus," she said, her voice tinged with emotion, "you've brought so much light into my life. I can't thank you enough for being here, for listening, for encouraging me, for simply being you." Marcus felt a lump rise in his throat. "The feeling's mutual, Eleanor. You've changed my life too, in ways I never thought possible. I wouldn't be where I am today without you." They shared a moment of quiet understanding, two souls bound by trust, respect, and mutual admiration. Neither sought anything beyond friendship, yet their relationship proved that love comes in many forms, not just romantic ones. It could be found in shared laughter, heartfelt conversations, and the simple act of noticing the goodness in someone else. As the seasons continued to change, so did Marcus and Eleanor. He opened his own workshop, fulfilling a dream he'd once thought unattainable. She embraced a renewed sense of purpose, channeling her energy into passions she'd neglected for years. Though their lives took different directions, their bond remained steadfast, a beacon of hope and resilience in a world often quick to judge. Whenever people asked about their unusual friendship, Eleanor would simply smile and say, "Sometimes, all it takes is noticing the light in someone else and telling them so." And Marcus, standing beside her, would nod in agreement, knowing full well that sometimes the simplest acts of kindness could transform lives in the most extraordinary ways.